Why do we have two obituaries? Well, the first reason is cost. In this area, your obituary can run anywhere from $100 to $2,000, depending on how long it is. So in our little Ames Tribune, it's $2.20 per line. In the Des Moines Register, it's $4.75 per line. In the New York Times, it's $50 per line. And so this is the reason why you have two obituaries, because you want to have a shorter, more compact version that can go in your local newspaper. So my obituary that I wrote, my newspaper obituary, would cost me, without a photo, would cost me $125 in the Ames Tribune, and in the Des Moines Register it was $266, and in the New York Times $2,800. So that's the reason, one of the reasons why you want to have two obituaries. So you can put a lot more information into an online obituaries. You don't have the space constraints. You can add a video. It could be the video from your funeral. It could be something else. You can include a lot of pictures that tell a story, and you can include more of the color that we've been talking about. So these are some online obituaries that were shared with us by the students. And so Cynthia liked this one, and what she liked were the phrases there: left to cherish her memory. Instead of survived by, she used left to cherish her memory. And then she liked that they talked about the fur baby Romeo. And then she said in Carolina, she enjoyed many years soaking up the sun, walking on the beach, collecting shells, and participating in community activities, even serving as the queen mother of the local Red Hat Society. So this is one that was given to us by Mark Lowry. This is a very interesting one and colorful one in its own right. This is somebody from Arkansas. So Carl's formal education was limited to the 5th grade, completed studies from Bell Grove Elementary School in 1944. His formal education was limited by his early life in rural Arkansas and the untimely death of his mother and the Great Depression. He and his family went around harvesting crops from Illinois to California, and his travels led him to Montigny, Arkansas, where he met Willie Stanfield. Carl and Willie were married illegally. Carl was too young at 18 to marry in the state of Arkansas without his father's permission, and his uncle forged the parental permission. And during their 71-year marriage, Carl and Willie never lived more than 10 miles from where they met. And Carl lived his final years adjacent to the Horseshoe Bend on Beaver Lake, within sight of where he met Willie. And so it tells what Carl did. He was a sharecropper, taught himself to operate heavy construction equipment, and in retirement he spent his time visiting with family, fishing, watching Cardinals baseball, and observing national politics. And Carl remained fiercely loyal to his family, friends, and country, and the Cardinals, so loyal that he was willing to tell them when they made mistakes, and this was especially true of the Cardinals. Carl read every word of every obituary published in the newspaper and celebrated the lives of his friends preceding him on this page. He would have expected you to read this obituary all the way to the end and would be happy that you did. So that's Carl Earls. This was shared by Desley, and what she liked was that his faith came through in this. With heavy hearts, we announced the passing of Michael David Elmore, and he was born. He had an innate ability to connect with others that brought him many opportunities and professional accomplishments. His heart was dedicated to building foundations in his relationships, and he had a deep desire to uplift and assist others in any way he could. Above all, Mike's faith was the cornerstone of his life, His profound love for the Lord resonated in every aspect of his being. He lived each day with the longing to hear the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant," from his heavenly Father. This abiding faith fueled his kindness, joy, and unyielding generosity. His influence extended beyond his family. He is survived by, his memories will be cherished, and the legacy of love and faith will continue. Mark's Mike's personal traits were a testament to his character. His kindness and joy were his constant companions, and he gave selflessly, regardless of his own circumstances. His deep appreciation for relationships was evident to all who knew him, as he expressed his love in the most genuine and heartfelt ways, placing God above everything else. Mike stood as a shining example of resilience and trust, and finding solace in the simplest pleasures. So that is Mike. Now, this is a very interesting one. This was shared by Scott Maple. This was a New York Times, I guess it was an obituary, and it was of Marilyn Lovell. I am not going to read this to you, but it basically, to me, is not an obituary, but to me, it is a recapturing and retelling of the story of the 4 days when they weren't sure what had happened to Apollo 13. So it's a long one. And finally, down here on the third page, we do have some things that look like an obituary. She was the youngest of five siblings born in Milwaukee on July 11th, 1930. They wed in 1952 after he graduated. In addition to her husband, survivors include, and those are the only things that really look like it is an obituary. So this one was shared by Ed, good old Ed. And what he liked was he liked the guy in the hot tub with the cowboy hat and the sunglasses. He was so David was a driven entrepreneur, and it tells what he did. He enjoyed boating, hiking, and camping, and especially father-son canoe trips every August. He loved nature and traveled trailering around the country with the tear. But most of all, he adored his family. We will miss his curiosity and zest for life, his startling belly laugh, and great sense of humor and kindness to all. So that was David Anthony Simpson. We've got Larry Allen Kruger. This was shared by Patty Adams. Okay, Larry Allen Kruger was born on the 48th anniversary and died at the age of 71 on the 48th anniversary of his wedding due to complications following a 7-month cancer journey. Family and friends and colleagues knew Larry as faithful and hardworking. Take it a day at a time and trust in God were hallmarks of Larry's leadership and methodical decision-making style. His quiet confidence came from a strong Christian faith. He was the fourth of 5 children. He graduated from Normandy High School. In college, Larry caught the eye of the pastor's daughter while doing landscape working on the church grounds, and on August 9th, 1975, married Joan. Less than a year later, they moved to Indianapolis, where they made lifelong friends. And Larry had a career in sales. He had a servant's heart. And I love this part right here. Following his retirement, Larry cared for Joan's mother through end of life. So I like that. That's very nice. So what I wanted to point out to you was that there's a difference between telling somebody something and showing something. I could tell you that he was a man of integrity, or I could show this to you by giving you a short snippet. After the Studebaker dealership failed, he contacted each of his creditors, assuring them he would pay his debts. It took him 10 years, but he paid back every cent. So that shows you that he was a man of integrity. It doesn't just tell you. And that's one of the problems that I saw in some of these obituaries is that they tell us many things, but they don't show us things. And in an online obituary, you can actually show somebody um, So I like that. So I could tell you that he was a very hard worker and achieved his highest potential in everything he did, or I could show you that by giving you a story, a little snippet. After retirement in 1994, he was back in the office the next day. His devotion to geology kept him coming back for the next 9 years. So he retired, but he continued to work in the job that he loved because he loved geology. And so that shows you rather than tells you. And we saw a lot in the obituaries where they told us things that they did. There were very few that showed us things. So he liked to sing and dance. We could tell you that, or we could show you that by telling you a short story. Phil had a true tenor voice. He was very proud of nailing the high F in There Is Nothing Like a Dame in the Evergreen Chorale's production of South Pacific. So that shows you that he liked to sing and dance. We could tell you that she loved animals, or we could show you that by saying when one of her cats died, word would go out in cat circles and a new stray would appear at the back door to take up residence. And so we can actually use a story to show something rather than just telling it. So then come to the idea, are you going to do your obituary, your online obituary? Are you going to do it in first person, or are you going to do it in third person? So if you do it in third person, you're talking about he, she, her, him, and it keeps it a little more impersonal. It gives you some space between the obituary and you, and it doesn't sound like you are bragging. So you could also do it in first person using the I, and it makes it very personal, and it gives you the opportunity to teach one more lesson. What I have found that it is very difficult to do, the ones that I have read, it is very difficult to do without sounding somewhat flip, to do it first person. So I'm going to give you some examples of first and third person. So we've got a self-penned obituary, and this is a very long obituary, so I've only picked out parts and pieces of it. And when this person died, their obituary literally went viral. And there were when I go online, I can find 2 or 3 different news stories on the obituary, like Today Show, where they talk about this particular obituary. So, a Florida teacher who died last month left behind one final lesson: how to say goodbye. Emily DeBreda Phillips, 69, died on March 25th after a brief battle with pancreatic cancer. And she wrote her own obituary within a few days. Somebody is not muted and there's stuff going on. If you could mute yourself. So she wrote her own obituary within a few days of her February 24th diagnosis, leaving behind a stirring, emotional, and outright funny account of child memories, family moments, and she even made a few apologies. So here we have it. It pains me to admit it, but apparently I have passed away. Everyone told me it would happen one day, but that's simply not something I wanted to hear, much less experience. Once again, I did not get things my way, and that's been the story of my life, all my life. This might be a good time to mend fences. I apologize for making sweet Bonnie wear no-frills jeans when she was little, and for red-shirting Scott in kindergarten. Apparently each of these things was humiliating to them, but both were able to rise above their shame and become very successful adults. I'd also like to apologize to Mary Ann for tearing up her paper dolls, and to Betsy for dating a guy she had a crush on. Now, Mary Ann and Betsy were her sisters. So she apologized to her 2 children, and she apologized to her 2 sisters. So I was born, I blinked, and it was over. No buildings were named after me. No monuments were erected in my honor. But I did have the chance to know and love each and every friend, as well as all my family members. How much more blessed can a person be? So, in the end, remember, do your best, follow your arrow, and make something amazing out of your life. Oh, and never stop smiling. And this is her final thought. I'll leave you with this. Please don't cry because I'm gone. Instead, be happy that I was here. Or maybe you can cry a little bit. After all, I have passed away. Today, I'm happy and I am dancing, probably naked. Love you forever, Emily. And so she wrote her own obituary, and you certainly can do that and write it in first person, which is what she did. So I've got one here that also went viral, but this one was written in third person. So Walter George Buell Jr. of Newark and Dewey Beach is no more. He is bereft of life. He is deceased. He has expired and gone to meet his Maker. He drifted off this mortal coil on March 9th, 2014 in Punta Gorda, Florida. His spirit was released from his worn-out shell of a body and is now exploring the universe. He was surrounded by his loving wife of 57 years, Helen Sellers Bruhl, and is survived by his son. Walt loved and enjoyed his grandkids. He was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He drifted through the Philadelphia public school system, graduating from John Barnum High School in 1951. He was a Marine Corps veteran of the Korean War, having served from 51 to 54 with overseas duty in Japan, and he was employed by the late great DuPont Company for 32 years. Everyone who remembers him is asked to celebrate Walt's life in their own way. Raising a glass of their favorite drink in his memory would be quite appropriate. Instead of flowers, Walt would hope that you will do an unexpected and unsolicited act of kindness for some poor, unfortunate soul in his name. And so that's two ways that those are both self-written obituaries, but two ways to do it. So you could think about doing it in the first person, but again, I say that I think it's very difficult to do it and not just sound flip. So we are going to be doing, your assignment for next week is to write a very, very rough draft, or rougher than a rough draft, or a barf draft, or whatever you want to call it, of your online obituary. So this is going to be a longer obituary. And this one is going to be, it can be anything up to 1,000 words. And you can give yourself a plus or minus 10% on that. If you want to go over a little bit, you could. But roughly 800 to 1,000 words is where you should be on an online obituary. But when you're doing this draft, don't necessarily worry about words at this time. The point is just to put everything on the paper and just get it out there. You're going to have another week where you can go back over and fine-tune your online obituary. But this is the time to do the rough draft of this online obituary. So, how do you do your rough draft? I think you should pour yourself a glass of wine or beer and be very relaxed about it. You want to use the tools that you have. You've already got your newspaper obituary. Now you're going to take your newspaper obituary and you're going to expand it. And you're going to use your mind map, and you're also going to look at the information that you got from your friends and family to inform your obituary. Not necessarily bring everything into it, but to inform your obituary and add some things to it. So here is my mind map. I talked about that, I talked about family was important, and I think I was a good mom, but I was a wonderful grandmother. Um, I had my Army career, and what I thought was really important was probably my dissertation that I wrote about the last wax and trying to bring those women back together again. I love to cook. I love to laugh. I like music, and I play the Native American style flute. I play that for hospice. I've taught over 50 people how to play the Native American style flute here in central Iowa, and co-founded a flute circle. I was a history major. I love history. Loyal friend, sister, wife, mother, and a lifelong learner. So that is what my mind map looked like. It also had two other things on here that I didn't use and eliminated from this mind map. But just because something is on your mind map does not mean that it has to go in your obituary, but it should kind of guide you as you put your obituary together. So what's fun is to take your mind map and put together little snippets, little one sentences, two sentence, a paragraph about something. So laughing. I gathered close friends who would laugh with me about anything. I gathered close friends together who would laugh with me about anything. And then being a lifelong learner, I just kept taking classes until one day I had enough to enter a doctoral program. After I finally got my EDD, I continued taking classes through the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. So I don't say I'm a lifelong learner. I use a little snippet to tell you that I'm a lifelong learner. I don't say that she loved to laugh. I use a little snippet to tell you that I love to laugh, and I love gathering people around me who would laugh with me. So you could tell an anecdotal story. So an anecdotal story is don't cry over spilled milk. This was a real thing that I said to my family, all the time. So I always told my children that we do not cry over spilled milk. The story started, of course, when they were little and actually did spill milk or make any mess that could be cleaned up. Still later, I tried to teach them that agonizing or assessing blame for something that had already occurred was just a waste of time. So don't cry over spilled milk. That was something that I said to my children all the time. So that's an anecdotal story. So here's a story about cooking. I love to cook. It was my one area of creativity. Gina and the children would ask what's for dinner, and I would answer that I did not know. It used to frustrate them to no end, but I didn't know. With the addition of tomatoes and peppers, hamburger would become spaghetti, and with the addition of black beans, tacos, or carrots and an egg, and it would be a meatloaf. Like an artist, I let the food talk to me. With just the two of us at home, the meals have become more elaborate and a little edgier. But what I love most of all is that my children love to cook. I have enjoyed exchanging recipes and Thanksgiving Day menus with them. The exciting part has been introducing my grandchildren to cooking. William calls himself a junior chef, and that comes from me, and I will live on through their cooking and the meals that they share with their family and friends. And so that's an anecdotal story. So your assignment then is to write up 2 or 3 snippets or anecdotal stories, and try to condense your anecdotal stories so they're not quite as long as mine, and insert them into your rough draft that you're going to be doing. If you have problems, go ahead and email me. So I'm going to stop sharing that, and I'm going to share again. Hold one, because I want to show you what I did real quick here. So I'm going to go to, this is my rougher than rough draft, and I just want to show you what I did. So the things that are highlighted in green are anecdotal stories that I wrote up. The things that are in yellow are things that were in my newspaper obituary that is the color. I didn't include anything. The things that are still white, those are from my obituary template. And so you can see that I went through here and I included an anecdotal story about how Jean and I met. We met at Fort McClellan. And I talk about how the Army gave me many opportunities. And I talk a little bit about my Army career. And I say being an Army officer, wife, and mother was not easy. So I juggled, and each day I would make a decision about which area of my life I would be more successful at that day. Would I be a good officer or a good parent or a good wife? And I apologized to my husband and children if the days did not always work out as they would have liked. And so you can see here I was starting to write in the first person, and I just had a very difficult doing it. There is my anecdotal story over spilled milk. Then my lifelong learning thing comes in here. Still stuff from my newspaper obituary, and then I added what I did after the Army, and then playing the Native American flute, cooking, and then I added this last bit that I had written for my sister's memorial that I wrote for her. In quantum physics, when you look at particles that are subatomic, smaller than the atom, everything becomes one. There is no definition where one thing ends and another begins. When you look at it this way, I am still here. I am the air that you breathe and the beauty that you see around you. I have become, as we all really are and will be, a part of everything. And so that's how I ended mine. And again, I say it's very, very difficult to write in first person, but I gave it a chance as I was going through this. I tried that. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I am going to stop the recording.